Hi, everybody. Let's talk about our writing notes. This is the second step in our journey to our persuasive paper. This is where we sort of reflect on that argument that we chose with our journal and kind of move forward with the development. Now, there are a couple different steps to this. So we're going to take a look at the rubric, we'll do the overview, and then I'll go through the nitty-gritty critical elements. So essentially what we're doing here is we are reflecting on the importance and the value of writing a persuasive essay. We've talked a little bit about persuasion in real life, and now we're writing a paper trying to convince somebody to our side. So what we want to do is really start thinking and brainstorming of what we want to do with our persuasive paper. Now, any type of writing that you do, academic or otherwise, should be done with deliberate intent, right? So you think about a text that you're sending to somebody. I mean, sometimes they're just silly, whatever, throwaway text, but usually there's going to have a very deliberate purpose to writing something to somebody. And it's no different with this paper. We need to think deliberately on what we're trying to say, who we're trying to convince, and the importance and value of what we're trying to get them to understand. So the first part of this is we want to assess our argument. What is your argument in this paper? It's the main point that you're trying to make in your essay. You should clearly state your opinion on your issue, describe the argument that's going to be addressed in your persuasive essay, and include how that argument is connected to your major. A little bit repetitive from our journal, isn't it? That's okay. You're going to notice that sometimes our assignments kind of build upon the previous one, and that's because that's exactly what we're doing. We're building a paper step by step. So sometimes you're going to revisit your key points, revisit your audience, just to make sure that we are still developing a paper that is, structured towards the argument that we're having for the person that we are talking to. So state your arguments. Clearly state your opinion. What side of this argument are you on? Describe how you're going to address it, what it is, and how it's connected to your major. The next thing we're going to talk about are your key points. The key points are pieces of evidence that support your main argument. What are 3 possible key points for your selected issue, and how do they support your main argument? So I mentioned in my introduction video that I absolutely adore Futurama and Firefly. So if I am arguing that Futurama is the greatest animated show that has ever been made, what 3 key points can I make about that? What 3 mini arguments can I make about that to convince you that it is in fact the greatest animated show that has ever been made? So think about your argument and what are 3 things you can talk about to convince your audience to your side. Again, let's consider who our audience is. I am not your audience. I'm just here for the ride. Who are you specifically talking to? Who are you trying to convince? Consider, too, in that discussion, what potential challenges you could encounter in supporting your argument to this audience. So if I'm talking about how Futurama is the greatest animated show that's ever existed, maybe somebody in my audience hates animated shows. That would be a challenge. They already have a preconceived notion about the quality of the argument that I'm having. How can I get past that? So consider who your audience is and what challenges you have in reaching them. The 4th thing that we're doing with this assignment is your goal. What is the end result that you want to achieve in writing this essay? Yes, we all want A's, but beyond that, what is the purpose of trying to convince your audience to see your side of this argument? If I'm trying to convince you that Futurama is the greatest animated show that's ever been made, what is my goal? It's to get you to agree with me, right? So what is your goal for the argument that you are having in your persuasive paper? Then we want to consider potential resources. Now, we want to get kind of specific with this. We don't want to say, yeah, I'm going to go out in the world and find some newspapers to talk about this. What types of resources do you intend on using? Have you already started your research? Awesome. If you have, start listing the titles of those resources. You can be a little bit vague at this point because we haven't really dived into our research, but if you're already collecting resources, tell me what they are. Okay? And then describe how each of them will reinforce your argument. You can't just be like, yeah, dude, Rowan, I'm going to go get some newspapers, whatever. I'll get there. Boom. We want to be specific in how we intend on using these resources to support our discussion. The 6th thing that we're going to be doing is using those supporting resources that you identified, list what points of your argument that those resources would support. So you can kind of see how Yeah, we can be a little bit vague, but it's better if we're already starting to plan. And that's what we're doing is we're creating a plan of action here. So if you have a specific newspaper that you want to use, how is it going to support your key points? If you've already found some resources, give me the titles and tell me, yeah, this article is going to support key point 2 because, and explain it. Okay. And then the seventh thing that we're going to do with this assignment is determine the aspects of your argument that would be effectively supported with evidence. Defend your choice. So if I'm arguing that Futurama is the greatest show ever because Bender is the greatest character to ever exist, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just using it as an example. I would need to have a piece of evidence that's supporting that claim. Okay, so you have your key points, figure out what sources you're going to use to support them, and then explain to me what parts of your argument would be effectively supported with evidence. Okay, so there's a lot of steps here. So if you have any questions at all, reach out to me. I'll be happy to break it down a little bit more for you. We can have a conversation about it. Now let's take a look at the rubric. And again, we got proficient, needs improvement, not evident. Needs improvement does not necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means that, hey, we did good on this, but maybe we could do a little bit better as we move forward. So writing notes, your argument. Do you describe the argument to be addressed in the essay, including how the argument is derived from the major that is being considered or your field of work? Do you present your argument and tell me how it's connected to your major? Awesome. Great. Key points. Do you determine key points and a rationale that will be helpful in supporting the validity of your argument? You state your argument. Do you give me 3 key points that are going to help convince your audience that you are right? The audience critical element. Do you identify who your audience is and determine some potential challenges in reaching them? For your goal, do you establish a goal to be accomplished with this essay? That one's pretty straightforward. Awesome. Writing notes, resources. That's our next critical element. Do you list potential resources for supporting evidence and do you provide a brief description of each? Again, we can be super specific or we can talk about types. I tend to encourage us to be a little bit more specific, but I know we haven't really dove into, I teach English, into our research yet. Be specific if you can. The next one that we're looking at is supporting resources. Do you align your key points of the argument with the supporting resources that you're intending on using? Evidence. Do you tell me what parts of your essay, what parts of your arguments would be beneficial to have evidence there? And again, articulation of response is just, are you using good grammar? Okay. If you have any questions at all about this assignment, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Post a question in the general discussion forum. We can chat, we can Zoom, we can text, whatever you need to feel supported. I know there's a lot of steps in this. Try not to overthink it. Break it down, answer the prompts, and you'll be good to go. You guys got this.